So our client was working on a way to record and report the well-being of the employees. And so the end client wanted to create a health network of what they call ambassadors. So people that are actively engaging with coworkers, friends, and family to live a healthier lifestyle. And so they wanted to track the success of these efforts through data visualization. And so it was kind of yes, we work with Drupal a lot, but in this instance they needed user accounts, they needed to create repeatable types of content, and then they needed to spit it back out. So it was an easy choice for us to just build this on top of Drupal. And I had seen D3.js a long time ago and always wanted an excuse to use it. And so here we finally had a good project where it made sense. So it's a pretty simple tool, all things told. Each user has an account. They have a user profile here that they fill out various items. We'll go into the edit screen. Some basic demographic type information. And I think the two that really come into the data are the network and activity goal. As originally designed, the network goal was a month-over-month increase in the number of people that you're connected to. And an activity goal was a month-over-month increase in the amount of invitations you sent for health-related efforts, and then responses you got from the people within your network. All of the entire project is sort of balancing on the data input that the users provided, right? So if they're giving bad data, the analysis will only reflect that. But so by setting some basic preferences, users could then create members in their network group. So a member is an individual that they connect with on a regular basis in terms of generating a healthy lifestyle. So they basically will create a bunch of members in their account, and then periodically, and we have notifications set up for either bi-weekly or monthly to remind them, hey, come back and record what you've been doing. So they would come to the activity tracker, which is just a node type, and fill out how many actions they took under these different categories, like -28. They're collecting extra data if they've made other types of contact to look for patterns that they hadn't foreseen. And then how many times did their inquiries get responded to? And then the culmination is really to have this statistics display, and I'll show you a better example in a second. That would show first a report on the number of people in the network. So how many members do you have connected? What's your goal, and how are you doing in relation to that goal? Are you achieving it, or are you under? This is the sort of initial launch. These things will grow over time to be more valuable, like, hey, you're under your goal, here are some tips, or have you tried this, or create more members. And then month by month they can get a readout of, here's how many invitations you made in each category, here's how many responses you got, and then there's a cumulative all-time display, and then a cumulative ratio that they're part of the study. The internal study is to generate a solid ratio of request or invitation to response. So using a random person, He has 3 people in his network. And there will be a new chart in here next week. But here's where we're using D3JS. Essentially, this display shows the number of activity, all of the data from activity nodes created in February by the user that we're viewing. And then it tallies that up in the categories and then pipes it into the donut chart. And you can see the correlation between the red quarter and this line, orange, etc. We've pulled in the goal that they set on their profile, and we can see as of February, this user has made 4 invitations. They're 6 short of that goal. No responses have been recorded as of yet. And then since this is a cumulative total, network activity since, this is just a dynamic data point of when they started or when their user was created. And so Chris, you could talk a little bit more about the mechanics here.
This module, this application was made through, I opted not to make use of views for this one because making use on data aggregation, some stuff like this, it's the database queries of views is not as good or as optimal. So you really have to make use of a custom module for that one. And for that, it's just really, hey, from the module, it's just calling it's just doing a JSON call to another page to populate this one, the charts, really, at least from what I remember it to be. Yeah.
How is the other? So you're saying JSON call from another page? How's that other page? Where's the data ultimately coming from?
Well, the data is
Or
ultimately.
the aggregated data?
Wait. Oh, this one is
Okay,
not.
so activity data is recorded by a node in fields.
Yeah.
And so rather than using fields to say, give me all activity nodes with a relationship or an argument of the user, author, Chris found that to be not very performant.
Yeah.
So went with a straight query to pull basically field data off of all activity nodes created within the month.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then encode it as a JSON internal feed, essentially.
Yeah. I think that's what's.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but database query is done through EFQ, entity field queries. To get more data from entity field queries it's a Drupal core to just query a lot of aggregate data. I'm making use of entity field. There's a contrib module, EFU extras, to pump in all the extra information coming from fields. So you don't have to do an expensive node load for that, because our node load is just ridiculous. The stuff that it does, like, there's comments loads, which is not necessary at all. So just EFQs for that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So ultimately there were 5 D3 charts on this page, which Chris did a nice job of just grabbing the data and then looping it through for the different computations. Show me the invitations for this chart, show me the responses for this chart, and then cumulative efforts here.
Right. If we can have a better example so I can...
Yeah, unfortunately I didn't get a chance to generate a whole bunch of new content.
How about user 3?
Because I think user 3 is gone here.
Oh,
No, there he is. There's Joseph.
Joe.
But I think I zeroed it back
Yeah.
out.
So designing data visualization apps in terms of color it's nice to pretty much coordinate that with the intensity of it. Pretty much with this app, hey, on the right side, this one's not really perfect as a data set. It's more of like trying to differentiate that.
This is,
Yeah. So as you can see
There's
now,
underachievers on your site.
yeah, it's kind of a new program, and I pulled live data because
yeah,
when we were doing generated data, it was creating, ridiculous amounts, 15,000.
I mean, therein lies a big problem with data visualization, models versus reality.
Yeah. So here's one at least that can show if they have data for a month back. There's a nice little switcher here that pulls in the January information. So this donut shows a little better, and it's hard to see
it's hard
obviously
to see
colors,
the color,
but they're different gradations of the red. We could certainly change the colors. That's all controllable.
right. So the idea is really the color intensity signifies the number of it, the sums of it. It's just more easier to distinguish. Unfortunately, on the screens here, it's not as distinguishable. But yeah, at least in designing data visualization apps, try to make use of color for
So
intensity.
this is just one tool of DS JavaScript.
Yeah, the donut chart is just one example of
Yeah.
all the.
Different ones that you could present.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of cool to look at some of the other options for ways you can visualize data. Here, this is easier to look at. And so basically, you take a JSON feed of data and pipe it into a chart style to display in the various objects. It's fun to look through these and all the different ways you could show data. This chord diagram is an interesting way to look at relationships between, say, like 2 points. I pulled this, a lot of the inspiration on where we went with the visualization I saw on statistics from a soccer match, and they would show this chord diagram as player A and player B, and then the chord between them is the amount of passes between them over the 90-minute period of the game. We are going to probably end up doing something very similar to this with the data that we're creating in this project, because they're collecting geographical data of where their networks are, and they're going to want to show how the network expand across the nation. So as we move into a phase 2, we'll have better charts growing
So
out of
there
it.
may be an intensity of color by state to show.
Something like that, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yep.
So how big of a network is this? Is this like a nationwide 50,000 people network? or-
So what, this project?
Yeah.
So this project will be, it's kind of like, this is the first round of it, and it's something they want to repeat. And I think ambassadorship runs for maybe 3 months. And so they want to get the first 3 months as baseline data, bring in a new round of ambassadors, get new data, and it's a fairly controlled amount. There were about, 150 initial users that we did as an import. And so over the next few months, they will be creating their membership networks and logging their activity, and we'll start to see some more exciting data coming out of it. Where's the one I'm looking for? But
So those 150 will be over how many states?
over all the 50 states,
Okay.
or spread throughout.
Is there going to be a baseline for all 50 states, like you got 20 in California?
No, I think it's based on where they're getting their volunteers from within the ranks. But the idea of their network is that they might have a network of coworkers. They might have a network of maybe clients that aren't really coworkers, then they would also include their friends and their family. And so they could see how the effect of these individuals making an effort spreads across the country. So this is just another example of like a bar graph style, and you can pull in other data as tooltip. We're going to be building a bar chart over the next week or so. Where's the one I'm looking for? You can have like data that you drill down into. So the coffee flavor wheel, displaying the different flavor overtones you would get in a different type of coffee, and you can click into sugar browning and see the sort of subset of data within that. If it's nutty, is it peanuts, walnuts, etc. So there's a lot of powerful tools in here that you might not need on a regular basis, but are.
So backing into that type of chart, is that all just hierarchical data?
This is, yes.
Like hierarchical taxonomy, maybe?
Yeah, like that. Each example has pretty decent write-up about it. And most of these examples are also projects on GitHub.
So do they have like data sets that they're all pulling from?
Yeah, because I'm trying to.
Well, so like
trying to
each
think
one
how
just
that-
provides a data
Yeah.
set, right? Like Chris, you built with a dummy data set
Yeah.
just to get the visualization rocking, and then connected it with the DB queries we were doing through
So
Drupal.
on those data sets, do they have descriptions of what the metadata is around that? Like what kind of data it is, and how far it reaches geographically, or anything else?
If you spent the time really
Okay, so there's some information there,
digging through,
depending on what people are posting.
yeah.
Okay.
I think, like for us, the process was interesting in terms of, well, first off, what's the data we want to collect? How should we collect it? And then what makes sense to visualize it? The piece up here for total network was originally designed to be a line chart, basically showing the increase by month. So you'd have month on the x-axis and value on the y-axis, and you would see a sort of growth line. But even after 4 weeks of sort of initial people getting in here, that's already shifted to say what we're really interested in is the composition of that network. How many are coworkers, how many are family, how many are friends. And so we're shifting that into a bar graph to show the varying levels of constituent parts. So it's a fun exercise to kind of think through what's the best way to actually see this type of data.
Yeah, right.
So the last one that we did in this project is a program-wide visualization of basically in this chart, a dot represents an individual, an ambassador, and displays what their invitation to response ratio is. So as people become more active, we can see, who is sending out tons of invitations and getting the most responses. Well, here, this one for now, because she sent one and got three replies. That's a pretty good ratio. So she's top of the heap right now. This guy sent out 4 invites but got no response. So this will
That
become.
would be me. Yeah.
So this will become meaningful to the group that's conducting the study as the data rolls in. And again, this one can show you like a month by month. See, January is when it started, so maybe some invites were sent out, but no responses were made. But when we move to February, we can see, oh, now the networks are beginning to respond.
So February could have been a result of January's response?
It could have been, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, which is where I was saying, you can't, like there's no way to really legitimize the data, right? When did the responses come in? In order to do that, all of the sort of call and response would have to take place through this system, which would require another 200 hours of design and develament time.
So did you guys look at any available data sets out there to work different models off of?
No, because we knew what we were working with here. We had a study that was created, and we had to work with what they wanted.
So they provided you a base data set, basically?
Not a base data set, but these are the data points we want to collect and report on. So, you don't...
Have they ever done the data set?
Nope, it's brand new.
Well, see, there's no way to verify.
No way to verify what?
What your results are.
Well, the results are what they begin to create.
Yeah,
There's nothing to verify.
This is organic, Bob.
It's organic.
Well,
I understand that.
so it's gonna.
But-
It's
but
not
there's a
like
lot of-
tracking-
There's a lot of good data models out there and a lot of good data sets.
It's not like tracking click-through on an ad. It's...
Well, but
Insurance companies have them, all kinds of companies have them.
but do they have any meaning and relevance to
But they don't have meaning and relevance to the
No, not
program
this.
being
Right.
created
Not this,
here.
that's not
so-
what I'm saying, I'm just saying that
baseline?
if you were gonna apply the same kind of methodology to another industry or to another client, you wanna find out what kind of data sets they have and what they,
Ah.
and apply this kind of thing to what the existing data sets are.
If you needed to compare it to some baseline, yes.
Oh,
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
if you have to do it to a baseline, but
Yeah.
In this case, we
That
don't.
may not even
You know,
be-
there isn't anything out there that tells us
right.
what type of network health there is in this specific situation. So
Most of the data sets like that, though, that I've had experience with, they're usually done with some kind of modeling intent. So they're collecting a lot of data to be able to model things, so they want to display according to what that model, to either verify, validate, or invalidate that model.